Hi there, it's Hal Feldman, Miami Hal, and this is another episode of the Miami Hal Real Estate Show. And I want to give a shout out right at the beginning to Andres and Alex, who are our producers today. There's some new software, and we're on a little late, but we're going to be golden from here on out. I have Horace Feliu. Horace, thank you so much for being here. And for
My
those of
pleasure.
you that are tuning in, I do something special each and every week. I bring in an expert on a particular aspect of real estate, or I bring in somebody that really knows a particular area. And in this case, Horace, you're our South Miami guru, aren't you?
Oh, well, I've been here for 32 years in South Miami. And when people say, "Are you from Miami?" I say, "No, I'm from South Miami." Make sure that there's a distinction there.
Yeah, but most people, if you say I'm from South Miami, they're going to think, oh, the southern end of Miami.
Well, that's true.
Let's
Yeah, it's kind
let's
of
set the record straight there.
right. There's a little map issue there, but it's a small community. Hal, as you know, it's 2.3 square miles, about 13,000, if that, residents. So it's small, but it's a beautiful little community. And I've worked hard as mayor to try to, and also as a commissioner, to try to keep it that way. As you know, we're like in the crossroads of several other communities, cities, like Pinecrest, where you're from,
Right.
where you live, and
Mhm.
certainly Miami and Coral Gables. And the traffic gets worse in our streets. And when I was raising our kids, people would speed through, and that was a big issue. That's why
Right.
I decided to run and start with the traffic calming circles that people see now throughout South Miami, many areas. Traffic calming was my big focus when I was on the commission.
Well, let's go backwards because I want to start there. South Miami, as you say, approximately 13,000 people live here. And it is a very small area, but it's in a pivotal portion of our county where a lot of people commute through it. There's a lot of things to do while you're in South Miami, even though it's small.
Right.
Probably, what's the most famous area of South Miami? People would know by name. I'm
Well,
alluding to a particular
yeah,
aspect of it.
you recall the Shops at Sunset?
There
That was
it
a
is.
big.
Yeah.
We
But
would
it's
drop
on
our.
Miracle.
Well, it's
Wow.
on Sunset Drive
Yeah.
and US One.
Yeah.
And through the way shopping has kind of transformed and different places to compete, our Shops at Sunset has dropped in I guess in a lot of in terms of business.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to revive that, make sure that it becomes again a vibrant location. When I was the mayor, a big focus was building a parking garage so that the businesses could have parking spaces and used a lot of them for their own employees. So we built it when I was a mayor of South Miami, and I think the focus should go back to try to build up our business district.
Well, let's go back again. You said when you were mayor. How many years ago was that?
That was 12 years ago.
That can't
12,
be that
12 and a
long
half
ago.
years ago. Yeah,
Wow,
that long
amazing.
ago. Yeah. And so a lot of people have asked me to run again to help because they know I'm a businessman. I've lived my whole life in my own business. And also, I was at one point a broker. I have a real estate, although it's not a current, it's not active,
Right.
but it's still, I was a broker at one point.
Okay, so you were a broker at one point.
Yeah.
You grew up here.
Right, yeah.
So
right.
what we're trying to do is with this show, not only highlight the area, but talk about how it relates to real estate. So going way back when, even before you were mayor, let's talk about what South Miami meant and felt to you. What was it like back then? And what's the transformation? And we can take our time going through the stages.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what was
well,
it like as a kid?
As
in
a
this
kid,
area?
in this area, it was a lot of green, a lot of trees, a lot of empty spaces. And so the idea is to try to juggle it so that it doesn't become overdeveloped, but it still maintains its quality of life that we enjoy. And trees and space has a lot to do with it.
Got it.
Naturally, we want to make sure there's safety. We have a good police department. We want to make it better all the time. And that's why people move to South Miami and the schools. We have the middle school, South Miami High School. We have a great charter school here also. As small as it is, it has a lot to offer for a lot of people. And that's why a lot of people want to move to South Miami.
Oh, absolutely. And the lot sizes tend to be relatively small, but the price of homes in South Miami is pretty astronomical these days, isn't it?
It's skyrocketed. I put it this way: I can't afford my own home if I had to, move out and move back in again. There's no way I could afford it.
Yeah. What were homes like as you were a kid and growing up? What
Well,
would you say would it be an average home and maybe even an average price back then?
It depends because the Dante Facel area, east of US 1, that's always been a little higher. But where I live, I think the average home back then was anywhere from 60 to 80,000, or about in that range, 60 to maybe 90,000.
And how many bedrooms, baths?
3-2
Three
for a
two.
3-2.
And today a 3-2 in that same area?
Oh, it's probably upward close to 900,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're talking a massive amount of appreciation. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, a lot of that has to do with inflation and just how the dollar has worked. But also, more and more people want to be here, right?
That's it. There's more of a demand than there is the product. So it's always, for a long time, it's been a seller's market.
So you said at one point before the show started, we were talking about the catalyst for what got you into being mayor of South Miami.
Well,
what was the thing that kind of lit your fire?
Raising 3 kids and seeing cars kind of speed by and saying, well, listen, we need to do something. So I initiated the traffic calming projects, a lot of turning circles, lowered the speed limit in residential areas. But now what we need more than anything is enforcement. Because I think when people see someone getting a ticket, they say, I gotta be careful, because here they're gonna be ticketing me. So we need more of that.
Is there a balance between ticketing and basically getting a population upset with the people and the police officers in South Miami? Because yes, of course, we want to keep the streets safe.
Right.
But if you literally ticketed everybody that drove 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, I think we'd all be paying a lot of bills.
That might be an extreme, right? But it has to be, usually it's people that actually don't live in South Miami. They drive through.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I drive through. I don't drive through fast.
Well, that's the main thing.
So,
and as long as you're doing that, you're fine with everybody. So, but yeah, that's a big concern with people, the traffic. And of course, there's, the fear of turning South Miami into a Brickell or a downtown Kendall. We want to make sure that we keep our charm and kind of a sense of community, which is nice. The people then would have an option. If you want Brickell, or you want Kendall, or you want Overtown, what's that location over there? That's
Wynwood.
Wynwood, yeah.
Sure.
My daughter loves that area when she's in town because of the restaurants and all that. But if you want all that, there's places to go. And South Miami offers a unique sense of scale. And I think that's important for businesses because they have an opportunity to compete, with something different.
Yeah. So let's talk about the scale of things. So in other communities, I, for a long time, lived in Palmetto Bay. And there's always been some pressure to kind of have the tax basis also have more businesses paying into the village.
Right.
So that more service can be provided and people can enjoy restaurants and places to shop without having to go somewhere else.
Right. That's the key.
Yet there's other people on the other side of the equation that say, I want everything to be the way that it was. I want trees and grass, and I don't want people coming to Palmetto Bay to do that. So how did you, back then when you were mayor, and now as you're seeing the current situation and the transformation again of South Miami, how do you balance that? I mean, there's pros and cons to everything, right?
Right, exactly. Very good. The balance is hard. It's not easy. But once you have a plan, like, for example, a vision of your town center, once you have that plan, which takes into consideration concurrency, traffic flow, compatibility with the existing architecture and all that, once you take that into consideration, you can have a vision that kind of balances things out. Perhaps 4 stories is too short, too small, maybe 8 stories. But if you're looking from 8 to 30 stories, we're talking about a huge difference.
Oh, sure.
And so you have to balance it out, again, taking into consideration traffic flow. For example, in downtown Coral Gables, you'll see streets that are one-way. And if you want to go the other way, but that's so that people can go in and out faster, right? And it doesn't cause intrusion into the surrounding neighborhoods. So that's very important to keep that element as part of the overall comprehensive plan to make sure that we have all these factors considered. Traffic flow, compatibility, and concurrency. Concurrency meaning that if you have enough sewage and enough water flow in and out, and that you have enough green space to accommodate or balance out the extension of more concrete. So you have to have a little bit of both. You have to consider that.
Well, what's your personal feeling toward where we were 25, 30 years ago and now, and then what's your personal feeling on where South Miami should go?
South Miami should consider, I mean, really concentrate on our downtown as well. But at the same time, make sure that there's no intrusion into the neighborhoods. It can happen. That can happen. It happens in Naples. If you've ever been to downtown Naples, you don't have 20-story buildings in downtown Naples, but yet there's a great deal of movement of people walking in downtown Naples. We have the Metro Rail here, which is a good focus there, where people can go in and out easily without using cars. And but again, you have to also have a marketing plan to help the businesses. When I was mayor, we did have a marketing plan. We did help the Red Sunset merchants. I don't know if you remember that group that was there. A group of merchants that got together, and they would meet with the elected officials, say, well, we'd like to see this, we'd like to see that, and how can we help you? Another thing is cut the bureaucracy when a person wants to start a business or open up a business here. For example, this company that just started here that you're aware of, Infusewell.
Yeah.
Yes, they could have opened up months ago. And it's a shame that the people that actually are investing in our city has to wait so long to get the permits that they need. And we have to cut the red tape.
You know, that the location of that particular business brought something else to mind. We have a hospital right here in South Miami.
Right.
So how does the hospital play as a good neighbor and a magnet for other businesses and people to live in this particular community?
Well, they employ a lot of people, doctors,
Sure.
nurses, professionals like that, engineers, and they also they want to move closer to their work, because that's, as you know, the cost of gasoline, having to deal with traffic causes people automatically to want to move close to where they work.
Sure.
So they help in that regard. I mean, it's great to be able to have a hospital that's 5-10 minutes away from you, you know.
So we talk about the fact that people want to be close to where they work.
Right.
Doctors may be able to afford this area.
Right.
Nurses, maybe, but
Yeah.
the cleaning staff, the support staff around
Yeah.
that hospital, when you're talking about homes, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, as you talked about earlier, at
Yeah.
$900,000,
Yeah.
what about the affordability? Because this all
Yeah.
ties back to, you know, the real estate market itself, right?
Right.
We want people to live near where they work,
Yeah.
and to have entertainment and all this stuff. But as you build it, a lot of times the economy shifts people away from being able to enjoy
Right.
and afford what they
Yeah.
want, right? So how do we kind of
That-
scale that the right way? Is there an answer?
Well, right now the county is working, as you may know, South Miami Gardens is being knocked down, and they're building affordable housing there. These are apartment units; they are not single-family homes. Also, here in this, when we had the CRA, there's the Madison Square project that also allows for affordable housing and low-income housing. But a city of our size, 2.3 square miles, cannot solve the problem. You know, I'm hoping that if they build so many condominiums elsewhere, perhaps the prices will go down when you have a surplus. Right now, as far as residential homes, there's not a surplus. It's a seller's market.
Exactly. Not as strong as one was maybe 3 or 4 months ago.
Right.
But it is still definitely a seller's market.
Exactly. So I don't know what the answer to that is, to make these homes affordable to people, especially in our area. But there's got to be an adjustment, definitely. Perhaps lower interest rates. And another thing that kills the buyer is the high cost of insurance, property insurance, and PMI. If you don't have, unless you pay cash.
Correct.
So it's.
I think insurance is a bigger factor nowadays than it ever has.
Exactly, especially with the climate change and all the hurricanes and tornadoes. It's become a major problem.
Right. So we're touching upon hurricanes. So since we're here, what do you see as major factors in the insurance business, in how a city like South Miami can prepare and then support people if we ever did have a hurricane that hit here? What the overall topic of hurricanes? Talk to me about your view of that, and then I'm going to tie in what unfortunately happened to us on the west coast of Florida.
Oh, God,
after
yeah,
that.
that was devastating. FEMA has to help with provide hurricane coverage. For those, they have to support the insurance companies, back them up, because and make sure that there's a certain as you know, they're not good at paying. They're good at accepting your dollars, but when it comes to a payout, there's some issues there. So the government's got to step in and make sure that, listen, you submit a claim, you should get your results right away, and actually fine and hold people accountable, because it's gone way out of hand
But
with the insurance
government at
company.
what level? We're not talking about South
No,
Miami
no,
government
no,
stepping in.
no.
At what level does
would-
does government
Yeah.
have the authority
Yeah.
and the strength to basically wrestle these insurance companies into some kind of reasonable solution?
Well, you may recall that Citizens was formed. Actually, a former
Right.
mayor and state representative, Julio Robina, led the charge in creating Citizens because all these other insurance companies were bailing.
Right, but
And-
we're having a repeat of that, and Citizens was supposed to be an insurer of last resort,
Exactly.
except they're no longer the last resort. They're the
Yeah.
only choice,
Yeah.
and that is a problem. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you know the stats, and I got them pretty close to accurate. Within the last 18 months, the number of policies that Citizens now carries is more than double what it was.
Yeah.
So we're over 1 million policies that Citizen now has to cover for, primarily for windstorm. And we've got a problem because
Yeah. It's unsustainable.
it's unsustainable. And on top of that, private insurers can insure things over $1 million. And as you're probably aware, the charter for Citizens says we will not insure homes worth more than $1 million.
Yeah.
So
Some
I
adjustments
got a
have
million
to be
and
made.
$1 house.
Yeah.
I've got nowhere to go. What do we do?
That is a major problem, and it's beyond the realm of a city, obviously. Definitely the state has to step in and make some adjustments and try to attract other companies, other insurance companies. I don't know how they're going to do that, but they have to come up with a solution.
Yeah, because we're talking about the first level of the problem, and that is
Right.
insurance companies basically bailing on the state or going insolvent because of what's going on here.
Right.
And by the way, it's not necessarily for covering a particular incident and paying out. It's about the unfortunate lawsuits that are generated from people putting in claims that they may or may not really be warranted to be
Right.
paid out on.
Yeah.
So-
There's a lot of fraud. There's a
Yeah.
lot of fraud on that.
You're a busy guy.
No,
so
I,
just-
I thought I had turned it off. Sorry.
I get caught like that too. Meanwhile, let's talk more about this, because the first level of the problem is getting insurance or not having insurance. That's the first level.
Yeah.
Then if you're out looking for a home and you find something beautiful in South Miami that you can afford, and you go out to a loan officer and you say, oh yeah, you're fully qualified, the house appraises for the right value. All we need now in order to give you your loan on closing day is you have to have insurance the first day. And now that potential new homeowner goes out looking for that and
They can't get it. That is a huge problem.
So-
Yeah. I don't know what the answer to that help, but definitely legislation has to be created at the state level to make sure that all that happens quickly, so that the owner or the potential buyer can buy at the right time.
Yeah, we are heading into some level of change, and I would call it a significant change, simply because of how interest rates are running, what's going on with the available number of houses, and we're going into a new phase. We're just leaving the insane phase. That's how what I call it. I really believe that what happened for the 2 years we were in COVID were insane.
Yeah.
The prices escalated way too quickly.
Right.
And
yeah.
I do have some predictions about what's going to happen, and it's not, going to continue to rise. That's my
It's going to
prediction.
It's going to go down.
Yeah.
The property
But-
values.
But this is yet another factor. This
Yeah.
insurance thing specific to Florida,
Yeah.
and even more specific to South Florida,
Yeah.
is really going to be not a game changer. It's going to kill the game in some
Right.
way, shape, or form.
Right.
So
yeah.
I don't want to get too negative there, but it seems like that's in your crosshairs on what you think is important for people that live in this area. But let's now go to the fact that you were mayor 12 and a half years ago, and you've now lived mayor free for 12 and a half years, and you're just crazy enough to do it again, right?
That's what my wife says. You say, you must be nuts. And I said, yeah, I have my craziness. But if I didn't run, there wouldn't be no choice, you see. One person walking in without even having served on a committee or even actually not even attending a commission meeting, I find that kind of strange. But and I don't find it right for the citizens of South Miami. And a lot of people have asked me, listen, step it up. You have the experience. Experience matters. You know how to deal with people. You know how to make a commission work to do things like I mentioned before, the municipal parking building that we built when I was a mayor, Sunset Drive improvements, Gibson Bethel Community Center was all built under my watch. A lot of good things that helps South Miamians. And that's what I'm about. I'm not beholden to any special interest. I'm doing it because I love South Miami.
Right.
And I think people who have asked me notice that this is something of a passion of mine. It's not because I want to run for higher office or become a senator or anything. I just want to, help South Miami and continue to help South Miami.
So if you kind of step back away from yourself and somebody said, tell me what you hung your hat on. What did you do in your prior term as mayor? What was the number one thing that you did that improved South Miami?
Well, you may recall that during the Bush years, President Bush, we had probably the worst market crashes in terms of housing since the Depression. Assessment values dropped. People were being foreclosed on, friends of mine were losing their homes here in South Miami. And when you have a drop in assessment, you obviously have less money to work with, right, as a government. So we held the line. We cut, wasteful spending. We made sure that we didn't have wasteful spending, and we tightened our belts. We didn't raise our taxes. We kept our police force intact, and also our garbage pickup. These are key services that South Miami offer the residents. That's why we moved to South Miami, primarily because of the great services, and we didn't skip a beat. It was like as if it never happened, the market crash. And people don't realize that, but I take great pride in having steered the ship in the right direction so that we didn't have a problem with safety or our services. We kept our parks open and everything went well.
So now people have been coming to you and saying, hey, Horace, run again.
Yeah.
What do you think they are expecting to get from you if you do get to become mayor again? And what do you want out of yourself if you get to become mayor again?
I just want to leave knowing that I did the best I could and in keeping our community not only safe, not only with our services, but keeping it intact from overdevelopment. We don't want to see fourplexes or apartment buildings in single-family residential homes. And that's what, unfortunately, a lot of special interests are driving us to that point.
Well, I think not only in South Miami, but pretty much everywhere in South Florida, there's so many people that do want to live here, and we're limited in the amount of land.
Right.
We're not going to push much further, hopefully not at all further into the Everglades. You got the ocean on the other side,
Yeah.
and the only place you can go is up, right?
Up,
so
up,
you
yeah.
got density that way, not developing things that haven't been developed before, but redevelopment. You've even talked about knocking down a development to put up new low-cost housing, right?
Right. That
So-
was done by the county because it's government property. We could do that with government property. As a matter of fact, the government of South Miami can't interfere with either that or, for example, J.R.E. Lee School over here. They're already fixing to put in a 4 or 5 story, maybe even 8 story affordable housing mainly for teachers, apartments. And that's something that could happen. It's going to happen. But there's only so much that a city government can do in 2.3 square miles. Now there's a false premise being permeated or created by people in the development business that if you go into higher densities, somehow we're going to stop urban sprawl. Somehow we're going to stop the movement of the urban boundary line, right? Development line. And that is a false premise because as long as there are families, young families, that want a little yard for their kids to put up a swing set or to have a barbecue on Sundays or on weekends, they're going to have to go elsewhere, right? They're not going to be able to afford it here. So, and they're not going to go into a condominium. You're not going to have a backyard in a condominium.
Correct.
So they're going to have to go somewhere else. And wherever that else is, that's where they're going to go.
What do you think about the transit plan as it currently stands? I know that's not something that's in your purview, and you can't have any direct effect on that. Neither can the council in South Miami, but overall, the South Miami community has a voice toward what the county's doing. So are they doing the right things? Are there things that you might steer toward that they're not currently looking at?
Well, one thing, if you waited on a bus, okay, that's part of our mass transit system, you don't have, many times you don't have a shelter. If you're in the rain, you're in the rain. If you're in the heat or the sun, you're in this, there's no shelters. Then they have these huge buses, humongous buses, instead of having many little buses that show up on time. How's that for a change, right? Wouldn't you like to go to a bus and know that at a certain time it's going to be there within 5 minutes, not within half an hour or an hour?
Sure.
Well, that is the key to good transportation. If that happened, more people would ride these buses.
And I think that's a problem. It's a chicken and egg problem.
Yeah.
If you build mass transit, you need masses, right, to justify it.
Right.
And although we have a good population here, it's not necessarily large enough today to build it for tomorrow.
Remember, build it and they will come. Remember that from
for sure.
the Field of Dreams?
Yes.
Well, we have to build it. We have to make sure that there's shelters for people so that when they wait for a bus, they're not going to be subject to the elements. You have to make sure that the buses show up on time and that they're readily available at all hours, not just from 9 or 7 in the morning to 9 at night or 11 at night.
And you believe the phrase, if you build it, they will come?
I believe so. And not only that, I mean, I'd be the first one. I would love to get rid of my car and be able to say, I'm going to get on a bus and go to downtown Coral Gables and know that I'll be there within a certain time frame.
And do you believe that that's true for most people? Because, for example, I'm a real estate agent, and I wake up at 9 o'clock, and I don't necessarily know where I need to be between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. because people call me and I shift things around. So a car is almost required for me.
Yeah, it would be.
There's a percentage of the population that knows exactly where they're going to be, and if that public transportation was supportive enough, you believe they'd abandon the car?
I think a good many would, because there are people that work in restaurants or in hospitals, and they work from 9 to 5 or whatever their shift is, or whatever their schedule is, so they know what time they have to be at work. I would say within the minority of people that have that flexibility.
What about as you say, the downtown area and the business area of South Miami? What types of businesses are still needed to go into that area? And do you have a plan to maybe attract something like that? How do you work around the small gaps that may be in the South Miami business community today?
Well, as you know, with real estate, when there's an empty store, it's not producing, right?
Sure.
So the idea is to help market the owner or the business district, to let them know, listen, we're going to work with you. If you want to come into South Miami, that's where a good marketing department comes in, which we don't have now in the city, is to let the people know, those that are business people, listen, we have an opportunity here. The rents are fair, and work with the owners of the properties to promote that space, to help them. And let them know that if you file for a permit, that it's not going to take forever for you to get the permit, right? Like what happened to Infuse Well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we've got less than a minute left, and I promised you I'd give it a little opportunity. How do people reach out to you to find out about your run for mayor? And maybe you want to give a phone number or something where they can go out and take a look at your background and what you may do for them. You can talk right over to the camera there.
Okay, yes, folks. I do have a website. My daughter actually built it, so it was
homegrown.
Very good. Yeah, homegrown. It's called Horace for Mayor, and www.horaceformayor, or you can call me at 305-299-7968. I'm also on Facebook, Horace Feliu. So I'm number 177 on the ballot.
Horace has been in South Miami a fixture, not only in the community, but here at Miami Community Newspapers.
Right,
for sure.
right. Yeah.
They love you here.
Michael and well, Grant, not so much. I don't think he likes me too much. But,
well.
I'm only kidding. He's a great guy.
Yeah. Good people.
Yeah.
Here's another one of them. And every single week we bring you somebody special right here to this show, Thursdays at 2 o'clock. Until next week, if you need help with real estate, get in touch with me, miamihal.com. And Horace, thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Hal.
All
Appreciate
right,
it. Thank
we'll
you.
See you next week.